The internet is going crazy for the Super Bowl commercial with Arnold Schwarzenegger that revolves all around his accent, and I've gotten a lot of messages asking what I thought of it, so let's take a look. Hello, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016. The Super Bowl was less than a week ago, and as we all know, one of the most popular parts of the event, besides the actual game and the halftime show, are always the commercials, which these companies spend a lot of money on. Well, except for Kanye.
Hey y'all, this Ye, and it's my commercial. And since we spent all the money on the commercial spot, we actually didn't spend any money on the actual commercial. But the idea is I want you to go to Yeezy.com, YEEZY.com, and I'm gonna write it at the bottom of the screen, and I got some shoes, and that's it.
And this year, the insurance company State Farm made a commercial with the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Arnold Schwarzenegger as people say here. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, let's take a look.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut. Hey, Arnold, I'm hearing neighbor. It's neighbor.
That's what I said. Neighbor.
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 Hey, let's go again.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut.
Now what?
It's neighbor.
Neighbor!
Cut.
Neighbor.
Yeah, neighbor. Just like it's written on the paper. This lady is in labor!
Cut.
Look at this. This is labor. Like a good neighbor. That was the sheep. And you know it.
It's like you're cold. Brr.
Yeah, I'm cold. Bah. Neighbor.
Still no.
Like a good neighbor.
Cut.
Burr.
Bah.
Burr.
Bah.
Burr.
Bah.
Neighbor.
Neighbor. Burr. Bah.
Burr.
Bah! Get me under this chopper.
It's pronounced chopper.
Don't.
It is.
Neighbor! A little bit more concealer.
Hey, Arnold. Got a bit of a script change.
Script change.
To be continued. Okay, so that was kind of the cliffhanger version of the ad that they had published before the Super Bowl. I honestly, because I didn't really watch the Super Bowl this year, I only watched the halftime show. I'm not quite sure how they aired it. Like, if you guys saw it, Ben couldn't really remember it. Did they show this part first and then the full-length version? Or did they just show the full-length version and only had this online before? I don't know, but I know that they published this online before the Super Bowl and people were already going crazy. Like, whatever is coming next is already considered the best Super Bowl commercial of the year and all these other comments. So let me know, what did you guys think? What was your first impression? Put it in the comments below, I'm curious. And we'll watch the full version here in a second. It's only like 15 seconds longer. But I feel like for my non-American viewers, I might need to explain real quick that like insurance commercials are kind of a big thing here. They're not usually dry and boring, but it's like each of the big insurance companies has their own theme and recurring characters for their ads, and everyone knows them. Like, people know the Progressive commercials with Flo, or the ones about turning into your parents. Everyone knows the Geico Gecko, of course, the Liberty Mutual ads, and of course, Jake from State Farm and the State Farm slogan, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Okay, so let's take a look at the long version together and I'll share my thoughts with you.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut. Hey, Arnold, I'm hearing neighbor. It's neighbor.
That's what I said. Neighbor.
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 Hey, let's go again.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut.
Now what?
It's neighbor.
Neighbor!
Cut.
Okay, so obviously the whole joke here is Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent, which is and always has been very Austrian. I actually sometimes see comments underneath my videos where people ask why I sound so American, while someone like Arnold, who's been in the States for decades, still has such a strong accent. But certain things just come easier to some people, and I suck at anything that has to do with throwing or catching a ball or aiming, and a lot of other things that I suck at. But I am pretty musical, and they say that for people with a musical ear, it's a little bit easier to pick up on things like pronunciation and intonation. But I personally think that when speaking a foreign language, it isn't and shouldn't be the goal to sound like a native speaker. Like, if you learned the language later in life, you obviously aren't a native speaker, so having a foreign sounding accent is totally normal, and honestly, it just shows that you're currently communicating in a language that you didn't learn as a kid. So how cool is that? I think accents are beautiful, and they're kind of part of a person's story, so like, there's really nothing wrong with that. There isn't like a better or worse. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there, but obviously Arnold is making fun of himself here. He's full on embracing the memes that have been going around for years, like this one. It's a reference to the scene in Predator where he, yells that, and instead of saying chopper, he says choppa, and obviously they're also referencing that in the commercial. Or there's memes like this one that are also playing with that same thing. Phone battery at 1%, get to the charger! And obviously his accent has always been a topic throughout his entire career. Like, when he first started acting, they even dubbed him with a native speaker because his accent was too strong and didn't really fit in with the role.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I'm tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I am tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
I mean, his accent has come a long way since then. So all of these jokes are revolving around how Arnold can say the American R at the ending of these words, which definitely goes back to German being his first language, because we, first of all, don't have that R sound in our language. We don't have an in German ever, so we don't grow up saying that or using that sound. And whenever a word does end in R in German, we usually just pronounce it as an ah sound, so like literally the way he's doing it. Let's do a few examples. So the word Lehrer, for example, ends in ER, but we pronounce it Lehrer. No R sound at the end. Or a word that most of you probably know, wunderbar. You guys probably would say wunderbar with the R, wunderbar, but we don't say wunderbar even with the German air. Even though you've probably heard Hitler and other historical people kind of do that in their speeches, they would say wunderbar, but that is actually not the standard pronunciation. I have a whole video about that. I'm gonna link that up here for you. We would just say wunderbar. Ah, and you can even see this in his own name. We say Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, at the end of his name, we don't say Schwarzenegger or Schwarzenegger. We say Arnold Schwarzenegger. And even in his first name, like the R at the very beginning of his first name, we don't say Arnold or Arnold. We say Arnold, almost as if the R wasn't even there. Now, in addition to that, as we all know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is from Austria, and Austrians typically use even more of the ah sounds in their pronunciation than we do in Germany. So like when I would say Servus, like I do at the beginning of my videos, a lot of Austrians would say Servus. So like Servus with an A, Servus. In Vienna, many people say Baba when they say goodbye. Or when we say daheim in German, which means at home, Austrians say daheim. I mean, Austrian accents vary all throughout the country, of course, but that's definitely something that's kind of typical for Austria. So maybe that's why he does that extra strongly. Who knows?
What?
Neighbor.
Yeah,
That's Jake from State Farm.
just like it's written on a paper. This lady's in labor!
Cut!
Look at this. This is labor. Like a good neighbor. That was the sheep. And you know it.
I will say, I
like a
think the
cold
sheep are kind of the funniest part.
Cold bar.
It's literally like he physically just can't say it.
Neighbor.
Still no.
Like a good neighbor.
Cut!
Burr.
Ba.
Burr.
Ba.
Burr.
Ba.
Neighbor.
Neighbor.
Burr.
Ba.
Burr.
Ba! Get me under this chopper.
It's pronounced chopper.
Don't.
Here's the reference to the Predator scene.
Neighbor! A little bit more concealer.
Hey, Arnold. It's got a bit of a script change.
Script change.
Thank you, Agent State Farm.
Like a good
neighbor, State Farm is there.
Simple.
You are a backstabber.
I am a backstabber.
So they had Danny DeVito come in.
Now let's just move on to the flashback scene.
I swear to be a good neighbor. I think we nailed it.
They had Danny DeVito come in to like help him out, and that's kind of a reference to them being in the movie, I think it was called Twins in the 80s or so, where they played together. And so yeah, there's a lot of like Easter eggs, and I probably didn't even get all of them because like his movies weren't really my type of movies, so if I missed any Easter eggs, let me know. But yeah, since some of you wanted to know what I thought of the commercial, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think it's very well made. I think it's really cool of him that he did this. I think this really speaks to his personality and that he's able to just laugh at himself and embrace this. And I think it's funny, but it's not like hysterically funny. Like I was giving it a little chuckle when I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, that's funny, but it's not like I was full on laughing, which I guess I'm pretty alone with because as I said, the internet is loving this commercial. You can go through the comments, like people are like, this is better than a Hollywood movie and those kinds of things. And even Watch Mojo voted it #1 of all the Super Bowl commercials this year. And it's not that as a German I feel offended by it. Like I definitely find the German accent funny too sometimes, but I don't know, I guess I just don't really find it funny enough to laugh my ass off about it, at least not in this context. Like he's not even actually saying the word wrong per se. It's really only North Americans that say neighbor with that R at the end. Like British people, Australians, they would all pronounce it more like him. So I feel like it would have almost been funnier if they had at least referenced different parts of the accent. Like the fact that some Germans can't pronounce the TH. I think that can be kind of funny. Like an American thinks, a German sinks. And the part where he says, get me out of this chopper, I looked up the scene in Predator that this is referencing.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
And maybe it's just me, but I felt like he sounded pretty natural there. Like, I didn't even think that it sounded super German or anything like that, because you can't tell me that an American, when they yell that word, that they're gonna yell, chopper! Like, you automatically kind of open up the word when you, like, yell it, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like most Americans would have said it super similar to that, and, like, his accent was very subtle there. But I mean, I guess not, because this is what made it into all the memes. I don't know if I would find it funnier if I was an English native speaker, probably, or maybe it's just me as a person and that's just not my type of humor. Like, I'm usually more into more subtle, dry humor, and this is just very forced in my opinion, very over the top. Like, let's do it 10 more times in case the person in the last row still hasn't gotten the joke. Like, even the very first time he said it in the commercial, he was already stressing it.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I mean, that sounds like he was already stressing it on purpose. I think it would have been more funny if he had said it naturally there and didn't even notice that he said something wrong. That being said, I do understand why people love this, and I think it's still super well made, and obviously it has a lot of references and Easter eggs, which is already really cool, and just having him in it is really cool by itself. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think, also maybe what you thought the first time you watched it before we kind of overanalyzed it here, and especially to my German-speaking viewers, I would love to know what you thought, because who knows, maybe every other native German speaker loved it. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my videos and turn on the notifications to never miss out on a video in the future. You can check out some of my other reaction videos right here, or just click here if you want to find out how good the German scenes in Hollywood movies like Inglourious Basterds really are. And with that, I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!